Canadian authorities look for a motive in the deadly Ottawa shooting. The West is accused of plundering African doctors from Ebola-hit countries. And a video of a pair of dancing priests becomes an internet sensation. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. The calm of Canada's capital city was rocked Wednesday by a lone gunman on a shooting rampage outside a war memorial and inside the nation's parliament. Police are now investigating yesterday's attack and another near Montreal on Monday that has left 2 soldiers dead and the country reeling. VOA's Latsa Hoke has our report.
Gunshots were echoing in the neo-Gothic halls of the Canadian Parliament Wednesday as police chased the gunman who stormed the building after killing a soldier. One of the attackers was shot down, and police searched for at least 2 more believed to be on the run. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper was swiftly taken to safety. The gunman ran into the Parliament after shooting a soldier at the National War Museum in Ottawa. Police and witnesses, including Parliament members, said they heard about 10 shots before the police moved in.
Well, literally, I was just taking off my jacket to go into caucus. I hear this pop, 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 possibly 10 shots. Don't really know. Thought it was dynamite or construction rather than anything else.
Shots also were fired at a shopping mall near the Parliament. All 3 shooting sites, the War Memorial, the Parliament and the mall, are less than a kilometer from each other. Wednesday's shooting occurred 2 days after an Islamic convert attacked 2 Canadian soldiers in Quebec province. One of the soldiers died and police killed the gunman. Witnesses to Wednesday's shooting in Canada's peaceful capital expressed disbelief.
Everybody was just in shock. Couldn't believe that something like this could just happen or be real. It was just beyond realism.
Ottawa police say they have deployed all available resources to ensure the safety of citizens.
All measures have been taken to ensure the safety and security of our residents. We are very aware of the large presence of military personnel in our community, and I want them to know that we are committed to their safety.
President Barack Obama telephoned Canadian Prime Minister Harper and later told reporters the United States is ready to help its neighbor and ally. The United States also has boosted security at its embassy in Canada. The State Department says all embassy employees have been accounted for.
We are currently restricting the movement of embassy personnel as a precautionary measure.
Canadian authorities have yet to determine the motive for the Wednesday shooting, which came as Canadian warplanes prepared to join the U.S.-led operation bombarding Islamist militants in Iraq. Latsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Now to the Ebola outbreak in West Africa, as healthcare systems in the hardest-hit countries struggle to contain the epidemic. A report by a British charity blames Western nations for weakening Africa's frontline health services by recruiting hundreds of African doctors and nurses. Henry Ridgwell has more from London.
A rare moment of joy amid the fear of the epidemic. 45 patients at the Hastings Treatment Centre near the Sierra Leonean capital Freetown were confirmed Ebola-free Wednesday.
I can eat fine. My stomach hurts no more. My head aches no more, and also my neck. Nothing hurts, and I have no more pain.
The centre is staffed exclusively by Sierra Leonean doctors. That's rare in Sierra Leone's crippled health system, says Martin Drury, head of the British charity Health Poverty Action.
The important thing to remember is that whilst an Ebola outbreak is caused biologically, an Ebola epidemic is caused by a run-down, dysfunctional health system.
Drury says underinvestment is to blame, but so is what he described as the plundering by Western countries of health workers trained in Africa. A recent report from Health Poverty Action claims that Britain's National Health Service, or NHS, has recruited 10% of all Sierra Leone's trained medical workers.
Even before Ebola, you had just 320 hospital beds in the whole of Sierra Leone. The system was that weak before Ebola. Now it's incredibly weak. And yet, at the same time, people like me in the UK are being treated by doctors and health workers whose training was paid for by Sierra Leone. And that's just wrong.
In a statement, Britain's Department of Health said that healthcare professionals often want to spend time working in different healthcare systems to gain experience and skills. Martin Drury says there is a compromise.
We don't want to stop people migrating at all, but if health workers from the poorest countries are coming to subsidise the health system of the richest countries, we should pay some compensation back into their health system to make up for that.
The British government highlights its role in the fight against Ebola. London is deploying a total of 750 military personnel. The United States is deploying 4,000 American troops to fight Ebola in West Africa. Those boots on the ground are vital, says Sophie Harman of Queen Mary University of London.
If you just send money, you have a problem of what we call absorptive capacity. Where does that money go? And how quickly can it take effect on the ground with helping these countries and the people that desperately need the resources? So really what we need to see is more people being sent to these countries.
Liberia is one of the worst hit countries. Its President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf recently urged the hundreds of Liberian medics working overseas to return home. But her own son, a trained doctor, has opted to stay working in his adopted homeland of the United States, saying he can do more to fight the disease there. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
The U.S. is tightening its Ebola monitoring for travelers from 3 West African countries. Federal health authorities are ordering travelers from Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone to monitor their health for 21 days and report daily for any signs of Ebola. The 3 nations are the epicenter of the Ebola outbreak. Visitors will be given an Ebola kit when they arrive at airports, including a thermometer. The monitoring program starts Monday in 6 eastern states where the majority of those travelers would visit, that is Georgia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania and Virginia. It's part of a broader U.S. effort outlined by President Barack Obama to stop Ebola in its tracks.
Health infrastructure and systems that we are now putting in place across the board around the country should give the American people confidence that we're going to be in a position to deal with any additional cases of Ebola that might crop up without it turning into an outbreak.
Well, the World Health Organization says the Ebola outbreak has now killed more than 4,800 people in West Africa this year. While the Washington, D.C. region is home to more than 160,000 Africans, including an estimated 10,000 Sierra Leoneans and 6,000 Liberians. How has the outbreak back in Africa impacted the lives of these immigrants? Amy Thompson, a reporter with our partner Channels TV in Lagos, Nigeria, went out to find out.
Countries such as Nigeria and Senegal may be celebrating their victory over Ebola, but Ebola is still a global challenge, not just to countries who have incidences, but even their residents and indigents, for example, Africans resident in the United States. The Washington, D.C. region is home to more than 161,000 Africans, as reported by the Census Bureau in October. Of this number, 10,000 are Sierra Leoneans and 6,000 are Liberians. This makes the area a good business location for someone like Sajo Kumar, who runs the African Grocery and Meat Market. It's a store where African food items can be purchased, and even with the fear of Ebola in the United States, Kumar suffers no loss.
The spices, only the one being bought. The rest of the meats are they produce in the United States. So far, there's no problem.
But this is not the experience of some of his customers who are mostly Sierra Leoneans.
People think that you're back home, maybe when you go home, you have relatives that have flown in from Africa, and then that's you pretty much, they stigmatize you as being like you carry the disease, even though you're living in the United States and then you go to work every day.
They also have to deal with news from home.
I think about my mom, my family, my friends back home. They call in because right now I just send money back home to them and stuff like that. And then it's killing poor people back home, and we need help from the national environmental people because our people are dying. Our people are just dying like chickens.
The United States has stepped up screening of passengers from affected West African countries as part of efforts to stop the import of Ebola cases. However, President Obama is still under pressure to place a total ban on flights from the affected countries.
Well, Annie Thompson joins us now live in studio. Annie, welcome once again to
Thank
Africa
you so much,
54.
Vincent.
Good
Thank
report, I have to say.
Thank you.
Now, it looks like the people you spoke to, other than the shopkeeper, they express frustration, and you probably spoke to many others who you did not feature in the story today.
Yeah.
How did they say they feel about just being an African in this area at this moment?
Well, it's not a very good thing now, according to them, from their everyday experiences. People, their side talks, no handshake, hug, and even Mr. Kamara, one of the guys who spoke there, he says he's a driver, and they have a normal checkup which they do, and he was going to the hospital when we stopped him and spoke to him. He says he was afraid because recently he hasn't been treated like others, like he used to be treated, and so now he's even going to the hospital, and he's really afraid of how he's going to be treated.
And he hasn't been to any of the affected areas. But what they're saying is, like Kamara was saying, is that people think every time you go back to your house,
yes, a family member has come back, and people don't just travel like that, but I think it's just a mindset thing. The fear is in the air. But
the fear is actually, it feeds on ignorance, a lack of proper information. Isn't that the case?
True.
And this is something that even way back in Nigeria, the government had to deal with.
Yes, because when the Ebola first came into Nigeria, it felt like everybody you touch, you could die. So some of the things that the public had to be educated on is to know that nobody can transmit the disease except when the person is sick, actually sick and showing symptoms. And if you see somebody who is sick, you really will not go and hug or, shake or kiss such a person, But even if somebody, like if you remember Duncan, even before he died, he flew on a flight and everybody there was safe because he wasn't sick then.
Yes.
So I think that these little education tips are some of the things that people should know, so you don't live in fear, because the fear alone could also...
Fear becomes a disease, actually.
True.
Something else I thought you need to share with us. There are some who are not of African descent who actually, visit some of these African shops. What did the shopkeeper, shop owner tell you about some of those customers who are not Africans?
Well, for him, he says it hasn't made any difference to his sales or to his customers. And maybe because, according to him, most of his things are, they are dried, and the ones that are fresh, like the meat, he gets them here from the United States. But the other ones, the spices, they are dry, so they are safe.
Yeah.
So there's been no reaction, according to him. His customers are still coming, and he's Indian, just a good businessman.
That's cool. Yes, but also the fact, I think, that for so many people, this is like an African disease right now, So sometimes people don't realize that a person from Swaziland may not have any contact with a person who has had Ebola. And that is frustrating, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Even for me as a Nigerian, yes, Nigeria is Ebola-free, but, to a lot of people outside Africa, they just say, oh, West Africa. And so you're from any country or any country in West Africa, you are trouble.
And we know West Africa has so many countries. Only 3 are affected at this time, as far as we know. Yeah, so it's necessary for people to educate themselves. Well, Ini, thanks a lot for
Thank you so much,
fabulous
Vincent.
report. Yeah. Well, Ini Thompson of our broadcast partner, Channels TV in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover here during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Well, coming up, Ebola pushes up infant mortality rates in Sierra Leone. Stay with us.
Like Voice of America on Facebook. Follow VOA on Twitter. Join VOA on our YouTube channel. Like, follow, join VOA.
Welcome back. Health reporter Lino Mudu is off today. Well, Sierra Leone has one of the highest infant mortality rates in the world. Now, the Ebola outbreak is likely to push these figures even higher. Health officials say almost all pregnant women infected with Ebola and unborn babies die from the disease. Adam Bales reports from Sierra Leone.
Kailan District, Eastern Sierra Leone, the country's first and largest Ebola treatment centre. Doctors Without Borders has brought in midwife Ruth Kaufman to tend to 3 pregnant women suffering from the disease. Kaufman says there have been no reported cases of pregnant mothers and unborn babies surviving Ebola in Sierra Leone. Authorities do not know how many have died already.
Especially in outbreaks, there are some groups of people that are more vulnerable than others. And what we see with Ebola is that if women who are pregnant contract Ebola, that they have almost 100% mortality rate.
The Aid Group's treatment centre has set up a specialised ward for these pregnant mothers, says Doctors Without Borders' Axel van den Eyck.
We have pregnant women. We have currently 3 pregnant women in our centre, and we have to deliver those women. So we have a midwife. We have been on standby since yesterday because a delivery is, of course, a very high-risk operation to carry out.
Kumba Sakila survived Ebola, but her 24-week-old fetus did not. She has been at the treatment centre 3 weeks, waiting to deliver the dead child she is still carrying. Midwife Ruth Kaufman says pregnant women need special 24-hour care, but caring for patients with Ebola is an extra challenge.
The whole way the Ebola treatment centers work and the way we can give medical care is very difficult because you can't spend a lot of time in with people, you can't spend a lot of time talking, you can't spend a lot of time, providing really one-on-one care, so it makes it challenging in that way too.
The Ebola outbreak is straining an already overburdened healthcare system in a country still recovering from a devastating civil war, says Kaufman.
This outbreak is, first of all, they've lost a lot of really good health professionals. It's decimating the health infrastructure. It's going to impact everything from food production to, family security to trust of the government to economy. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see Sierra Leone having to fight another battle.
The long-term impact of the Ebola outbreak on West Africa's maternity and infant mortality rates is still unknown. What seems certain is that the country's healthcare system remains crippled for now. Adam Bales for VOA News, Kailan, Sierra Leone.
Well, bicycle frames are commonly made out of carbon fiber, steel, or aluminum. But in Ghana's countryside, an entrepreneur is trying to show the world another way to make bikes from bamboo. Well, Chris Stein has more from Ghana.
Bamboo does not get much respect in Ghana. Farmers see it as a nuisance to be cleared from their land. Construction workers use it to prop up buildings under construction. But Kwabena Danso thinks bamboo is worth more than that. His company, Boomers International, has been making bicycle frames out of bamboo, sending them from the Ashanti region village of Apa to Germany, the Netherlands, Australia, and elsewhere.
It has so many opportunities for the country. Like us, we want to go into other, even when we want to go into other products, it's a great opportunity for us to revise and then get the people to know that there's great advantage of bamboo.
Danso takes young men from nearby villages and puts them to work sanding, gluing, and binding his bamboo frames. His company churns out about 50 of the frames per month and uses locally produced bamboo for the frames and cassava flour mixed with epoxy as one of the glues. Besides being a successful social enterprise, Danso says Boomers also serves as a source of livelihood for young men like foreman Abdul Razak. Without this job, Razak says he would still be living at home with his parents.
If this company it is not there,
I don't know where I would be by now. Yeah, but because of that, I've got a job somewhere doing, and it's helped me. It helps me a lot.
Donso has sold only a few of his frames within Ghana. One of his customers is Walter Kujoji, who purchased a bike earlier this year. Kujoji says his solid wood frame rarely escapes notice when he goes for rides around his neighborhood.
For example, on Saturday, I rode about 5 kilometers around my neighborhood, and everywhere I went, people were just looking at me, and you could just once in a while you hear the exclamation, "Hey, it's made out of bamboo. Hey, that's the bamboo bicycle." You know, and anytime I stop to take a breather, people come close to me and say, "Wow, we heard about this, but this is the first time we were seeing it. Is it functional? Does it work?" I say, "Yeah, try it."
With his shop overwhelmed with orders, Donso says Boomers is poised for expansion. He hopes to get more of his frames riding around, not just on the streets of foreign countries, but on the roads of Ghana as well. Chris Stein for VOA News, Accra.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. No maps on these taps. A pair of dancing priests take social media by storm. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Tunisia, a security officer was killed and several people were injured in a firefight with militants near the capital, Tunis. And 315 volunteers will be sent from Kenya to West Africa in an effort to fight the Ebola virus. South African finance minister announces government budget shortfall as economic growth slows. In Botswana, the nation prepares for Friday elections, considered, quote, the most competitive, unquote, since the vote for independence in 1966. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Well, they tap, and they stomp, jump, twist, and twirl. They are the dance dueling priests who have gone viral on the web. The famed video shows Father David Ryder from New York let loose a tap dancing routine on stage. After a few minutes, Father Gibson, John Gibson from Wisconsin, makes his way into the spotlight. Now, the video called a must-see tap dance duel by U.S. seminarians has been viewed over 250,000 times on YouTube. Also trending on social media, buzz about Oscar winner Renee Zellweger's changed appearance. And Renee has responded to the internet busybodies. She issued a statement to People magazine after she became a trending topic on Twitter and Facebook, with many fans claiming the actress had become unrecognizable. Renee says she looks different because she is living a different, happy, more fulfilling life. She added, "Who doesn't look different as they get older? Who indeed?" And finally, here's a Facebook founder, Mark Zuckerberg, taking questions from students.
What you got Shanghai, Beijing, what I do.
That's right, and answering in Mandarin. Now, the audience at Tsinghua University in Beijing audibly gasped and then broke into applause when Zuckerberg took the microphone and greeted them in Mandarin, saying, 大家好, which means hello, everyone. In face, Mark conducted the entire discussion in Chinese. Now, he explained that when he wanted to ask his future mother-in-law for his wife, Dr. Priscilla Chan's hand in marriage, he decided to do it in Chinese, which he says went over well. He began studying the language in 2010, probably in his ample spare time, right? And that is what is trending today. Now, a decent man who needs money is talked against his better judgment into participating in a crime. It's a familiar premise for Hollywood filmmaker, but in a new film from first-time director, the man is a poor Somali fisherman, and the crime is piracy. VOA's Caroline Weaver has more on Fishing Without Nets, a thriller told from the pirates' point of view.
In Fishing Without Nets, Abdi is a fisherman in Somalia, where pollution from foreign trawlers has ruined the catch. Desperate to support his family, Abdi is persuaded by a friend to help a group of pirates. They seize a French oil tanker and take the international crew hostage, hoping to extract a large ransom.
I'm a fisherman. No, you're not fisherman. You're a pirate.
News accounts of Somali piracy in the Indian Ocean had fascinated first-time director Cutter Hodiern, especially the perspective of the pirates.
And I just was so intrigued by what would lead somebody to get to that point of doing something so desperate and also so kind of audacious.
Then 24, Hodiern went to Kenya in 2010 and made a shorter version of Fishing Without Nets, casting Somali refugees living in Mombasa. They were day laborers, fishermen, truck drivers, not actors.
So we would set up these informal auditions in restaurants and just like hangouts where Somalis would sit around and chew khat and drink tea, and we would audition people there.
When the short won a Sundance Festival Grand Jury Prize, Vice Media stepped in with $2 million to fund a feature-length version. It was shot again in Mombasa with many of the same Somali non-actors, again improvising the dialogue. Using a translator, Hodiern told the cast only the basics of what should happen in each scene.
So they knew what was going to happen within a scene, and then they would improvise all of the dialogue within that scene so that it was in their voice. And they are amazing at that. They add so much to it that I couldn't have written on a page. And so I considered them sort of co-writers of the movie.
Hodiern likes to describe Fishing Without Nets as an art house action film, and the unlikely combination of suspense and reflectiveness fits. Powerful, deliberate, and absolutely beautiful, as one critic described it, the film won a Grand Jury Directing Award at this year's Sundance Festival. After limited theatrical release in the U.S., it will be released on video on demand. Carolyn Weaver, VOA News, New York.
And that's our show for today. Good night. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords. In the United States, the freedom to say what you think is an important right. Listen to this story about a Pakistani group fighting to open the internet.
Activist Farhan Hussain of the media advocacy group Bytes for All says his group is involved in 2 court cases against the government for its censorship and surveillance activities.
Censorship means someone or something, usually a government, restricts information. Books, movies, letters, or internet websites are reviewed, and items thought to be offensive often are banned.
So the next time you hear the word censorship, your American English will be good enough to know what this news word means.